Let me start recording this. So team, welcome to Selenium plus Java live training orientation session. So today we are going to have a quick demo on what we're going to cover with respect to the Selenium tool as well as the using the Java. And then most of the time we'll spend it on Q&A that you have, which the actual course we will be starting it from immediately from tomorrow onwards. So the first thing that we're going to do is look at an introduction to Selenium tool as such, like what is Selenium tool, what is the purpose of it, when is it started. So that kind of a quick introduction on that, and then we'll look at the purpose of the Selenium tool, a little bit history of it, like when it is started and why so much of hype about this tool and how long about this is being used really in the organizations. So we'll look at a quick history of the Selenium tool, and people um, heard about it long back. So we had Selenium Suite 1.0 as well as we had currently what we are using right now is called Selenium 2.0. So we'll see what is the difference in these two and what is the current one that is actually we are using it. And when it comes to 2.0, these are the three major components: the Selenium IDE, integrated development environment, and then we have Selenium Webdriver 2.0, and then we have Selenium Grid 2.0. Before that, what was there in 1.0, we'll quickly also have a glance of it and how it is being converted into 2.0 and what is missing in what was there in 1.0 and what is not there in 2.0. So that kind of quick difference we'll be able to see that. And then it's not just about learning the Selenium tool as such, along with the Java language that we're going to predominantly deal here, but we also going to look at integrating the Selenium tool with a lot of other freeware tools, which is used for continuous integration and continuous deployment. Typically, Apache Maven is one of the tools that is used for the building of the software, and Jenkins is basically for your continuous integration software. So we'll see how this Selenium can be integrated with the related tools like Apache Maven and Jenkins. So this is a quick agenda. So anything apart from this, anything questions related to the access, course, etc. I'm not the right person. Please write an email to learn at sales.elearn@itlearn.com. So here probably we'll deal with most of the technical questions that are related. Now with this, let's look at the introduction to the Selenium part of it. So what we're going to do, how we're going to do is anything that is I wanted to share. So we'll create a Google Drive. So typically what I've done is I have created something called Selenium Jan 16 folder. Of course, you all will be having an access to this probably 2-3 days from now. All the discussions that we do with respect to the topics or the programs, examples, everything will be pasted into this and you will be given an access so that you can also practice on the same things first and then you can try different examples of similar topic that we have discussed. Let me just open one document. Okay, so let's look at the introduction to the Selenium tool as such. So basically it's a freeware, or you can also call it as open source automated functional testing. So typically there are various automation tools available in the market. So we have automated tools for functional testing, we have automated tools for load and performance testing, we have automated tools for test management where you can maintain your test cases, reporting, etc., etc. But this tool, the Selenium tool, is majorly, or the main purpose of this tool is only for automating functional testing, and that too of web applications. So majorly it is used for web applications. For example, if most of you might have heard or used tool like HP QTP UFT, or any other tool like Visual Studio Automation Suite. So they may also help you in doing the Windows or desktop related applications, but mainly the purpose of Selenium is for functional testing of web applications across different browsers. So your application could be ported on an Internet Explorer, or it can be on a Firefox browser, or it can be on a Google Chrome, whatever it is. So you can actually test your applications on different browsers, and very important is different operating systems. You can actually test it for not just Windows, but you can actually test it for other operating systems as well, like Macintosh, Unix, Linux, etc. So this is the quick introduction that we can give it for the tool. Of course, as people are asking also on the chart, and then it is also used for other areas of mobile application testing. Yeah, as Mehboob is also saying, it also supports, but you know there are some other better tools in terms of it using. So our discussion will be primarily on web applications on different browsers with respect to different operating system. Yes, in a way, answer for mobile application testing is yes. So this is a quick introduction that we can give it, and it's a free open source tool. So a lot of startup companies, smaller companies, even big commercial application, enterprises, I see them, they are using Selenium as their primary automation tool. The primary purpose is it's a freeware open source tool. If you actually think of competitor for this, another functional testing automation tool that we just talked about, it's primarily the HP UFT or QTP. The difference, we can discuss it in detail probably in the next section, but few points that we can actually talk about it. That is a commercial tool, and we all know that it primarily works on Windows operating system with respect to IE browser. Of course, since it is a commercial tool, it has a better way of generating the reports, but the limitations are, again, it can only be integrated with its related tools like ALM, Quality Center, Load Runner for load performance testing. The challenge here when you're actually working with Selenium comes is, since it is an open source tool, what does it mean? There are a lot of excellent brains all over the world came together, has written the code in terms of Java to automate certain things. And since it is a freeware, so you may not find as it like in a commercial support. Of course, the primary organization is a seleniumhq.org. If you have not seen, from where you can find all this information is, this is the primary site. Mahbub, I'm not saying that they won't support, but the fundamental development that if you see, again, you have to go with a plugin or, so basically Mahbub has a question. He's saying it also supports IE Chrome, the UFT. My intention, my idea behind that was the default one. When you actually buy the basic one, again, everything is a commercial, so you have to buy a separate add-in for that. That is the whole idea of saying that. So this is the primary site, seleniumhq.org, from where you get all the information related to the Selenium, all the required software that we are going to download it from here, and there is a documentation help for it, and there is a support information also available. So in a way, it is in a much better shape, as many of the organizations are using for the last couple of years. So we have knowledge built all over the world, and you can find any kind of a help over the internet. All that is still there, but considering it is a freeware, so you won't expect it like a commercial software support that you would actually get it in any other competitive tools, except that everything. So basically what we have to do is we'll have to install a couple of components from different locations. We have to download, and then we have to configure them into a primary tool like an Eclipse tool, which most of the people are going to use it. But again, it's not just Selenium with Java. Selenium can also be used with other languages like C Sharp. You can use it for Python. You can use it for Ruby. So there are many other languages that also people use it. But most of the people actually use it with Java. So that is one of the primary reasons that why we are going to discuss this entire course, Selenium, along with the Java. So that is the only challenge where you don't find as if like a commercial software. So you will be learning it in the entire course. How do we download the Eclipse? How do we actually download the WebDriver components? How do we configure them? Then we will look at different other integrated frameworks like a TestNG framework, JUnit framework, and then we will look at how do we create various examples working with web applications. So all that one by one we will be learning it through this particular software. So that is a quick introduction about the tool as such. The purpose, as we said, it's mainly for, in fact, actually not just Selenium, any automation tool purpose. Probably it's a time to just quickly recap of it. Any automation tool purpose is like this. If you have not worked on any on automation tool previously, this is the time, because we should understand when we actually get into the detailed discussions. This is a common question that keeps on people asking. It's like, I've already done one round of manual testing. Why are we doing it actually in automation testing? The main purpose of automation testing is for the regression testing, or you can also call it, some people call it as retesting. Of course, there is a clear difference. So if you have already tested something, but you're going to repeat the testing either because there is a code change to fix some problem, or they enhanced some feature, or they removed certain feature that customers are not using for whatever the reason, they touch the code, the development team touched the code, and you got a new build, and now you have to repeat those 500 test cases, just an example, that you have already tested. Now it's again a time consuming process with manual testing. So we go for automation tools like this, Selenium or UFT or Microsoft Visual Studio Test Suite to do an automation. Typically that is called regression testing. Or on the same build, if you wanted to repeat second level of testing, let's say it's no change from the development seed, it's the same build, but you wanted to repeat the testing because you could not find expected number of issues. So you just want to repeat the testing again. So that is something called retesting. So either for regression testing or retesting, automation tools will be used. Similarly, Selenium is mainly for that. The other one is browser compatibility testing. Suppose when we talked about applications, and that too web applications, so we have different web browsers available in the market, and let's say the development team, when they actually developed it and tested with only one particular type of browser, or one particular specific version of that particular type of the browser, an example, let's say IE10, but we have the customers all over the world using different browsers. So we'll have to do a compatibility testing of our web application for all those different browsers. Doing it again, a manual testing on all those browsers is again a time consuming. So what we typically do is, after we tested one round with a particular version in which typically the development team has developed, we'll go to the other versions of the browsers. Just by tweaking the code, we will look at Selenium, how we can actually work with Firefox browser, Internet Explorer browser, Google Chrome, and other browsers. So around 2 to 3 lines of code you have to change in the beginning. Rest of the code is going to be as it is. Whether it is you enter into a login form, or you click on a link, or you work with some web table, or you work with a frame in that particular application, whatever the locator that you're going to work, that code is not going to change. It is as it is. All that you have to do is just inform the WebDriver which browser that you're going to work on, and you're done. Go ahead and do the browser compatibility testing. The other one is OS compatibility testing. So as we said again, primarily people might start your development of the application on Windows, but you may actually have to do it on other operating systems. So you don't need to repeat the testing manually. All you have to do is just go and run the code on different operating systems with the different browsers, of course. So this is like any other automation tool. The primary purpose is regression testing or retesting, and browser compatibility testing, OS compatibility testing, etc. If we quickly spend some time in trying to understand the history of Selenium, uh, people talk about two versions majorly, Selenium 1.0 and Selenium 2.0. Actually speaking, Selenium 1.0 you can forget it, because the one that we are actually currently using is Selenium 2.0, but I just want to spend some time as part of the demo to talk about that. So the initial version of it, uh, which is called Selenium 1.0, it's typically released by an organization called ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks is a company who primarily developed this first version of it, and that too in the year 2004. So if somebody thinking that Selenium is brand new, I'm just hearing it only for 1 or 2 years, no, it is actually exists for the last 10 or 11 years of it. So it's almost 2004 is when the first version got released, and it's released by, or it's developed by a person called Jason. So Jason Huggins is the person name. So he is the one who developed 1.0. So we won't discuss all these things as from tomorrow. It will be totally a technical discussion, but at any point of the time, if you are missing some of the fundamentals, this is the time we are just quickly touching upon that. But later on, what happened, it's a freeware, so people need to sponsor the time to develop certain things, and he could not take it forward. So that is when Google has taken over. So Selenium 2.0 is developed by Google, and it's released in 2010. So the one that we are currently talking about, 2.0, this is primarily came in 2010. The current version, it is always better to check from this particular site, because people keep adding to it. The releases would be coming very frequently. So just go here, go to the seleniumhq.org site, and you can see the latest version of it is 2.49.0. So the latest version of the Selenium is 2.49.0. So this is a quick introduction about it, who developed it and how long it is being in and existing in the market. But of course, you are very right, it has become popular since this time. And before that, QTP was completely ruling the market, almost like, I know QTP for about 2003 onwards, and then we migrated this Selenium around 2 years back. So entire 10 years of time, a completely a decade of time, QTP was ruling the market. Now I would say both of them are equally doing good, but since it is a free commercial tool, a freeware tool, open source tool, a lot of companies actually prefer to use this, as they can save a lot of money on that. Any questions so far? Now let's look at what is the Selenium suite consists of. What are the different components that are there? I'll quickly touch upon 1.0 first, even though it is not something very important, but you might have heard about one of the component called Selenium RC. So let me discuss that. Everything, browser compatibility testing, OS compatibility testing also we can, yes, each of this whatever. So in fact, it will go something like this to quickly show you upon. So we will be probably tomorrow we'll do a detailed introduction to Selenium, and then we will be spending about 3 sessions on IDE, Integrated Development Environment, and then few sessions around 8 to 10 sessions on Selenium Webdriver. Then we will go into Advanced Webdriver. Then we'll look at JUnit framework, TestNG framework, Selenium Grid. We'll do database testing with Selenium, page object model, page factory, Apache Maven integration with Jenkins. Of course, it's not just about the tool, but you need to become familiar with Java language. Then we will be covering through data-driven framework, keyword-driven framework, hybrid framework, then followed by your interview questions and resume preparation. Uh, Actually, it's not just the straight 30 sessions, to be frank, because if you take each of the topic, for example, now, test engine framework, I would need 2 days to cover. Grid, I would need 2 days to cover. Maven integration is 2 days. Jenkins integration is 2 days. Data-driven framework itself, like we have 4 sessions on that, 4 on keyword, 4 on framework, the hybrid framework. So what we are going to do at IT eLearn is, and moreover, everything is not just like a topic. So we deal it with as a project. So when I say this will be like a project one on IDE, will take one. So IT Learn is associated with other businesses also, for which we there is an organization called atomic77.com, so where we do digital marketing website creations for many other business. So we'll take one of the live website, and then we'll work on all these topics. So basically we'll do one project with Selenium IDE, another project with WebDriver, another project with all these particular things, like Apache Maven integration and other stuff. And the entire course, if you have to deal with all these topics, frankly speaking, this will go beyond 50 sessions. Even though I just put it over here, I would have put topic one instead of day one. That would have been the right term. But this will go for about 50 sessions. And what we actually do at IT Learn is that, so we do both a live training as well as videos. So it's a combination of them. Together, we can actually finish it in within 30 days of time. But all you have to do is not just 1 hour which you're going to spend it on the live, you also need to spend one another hour basically on the videos. Some of these topics, like for example data driven framework, I will also discuss data driven framework, keyword driven framework, and hybrid framework. We have an excellent recordings that are done by Karthik. So what we're going to do for this particular thing is, except these two, I will be covering everything else, and those two you're going it through videos. So in a way, whatever Karthik has done in the recent Selenium batch, all that videos will be given to you access, along with whatever I'm going to discuss, each and every example for each and every topic on the live. Because if you have to do all together, all over it again, as I told you, it will go beyond 50 sessions. So some of them will be, which are especially the frameworks part, which Karthik has done it and excellently on keyword-driven framework, hybrid framework. So that will be given to you as a video, and the remaining everything I will be dealing it as a project. So we call it as everything is a project one, project two. So project one with IDE, project two with WebDriver, similarly project three with all other topics. Yeah, I think so. We have it for 26 days. No worries on that. So we'll add it as required. Yeah, Rajesh has a question, like I almost see 5 to 6 different kinds of frameworks. Do they framework hand in hand? What are the differences? So it starts with, the basic thing for all of them is, data driven framework is one purpose, keyword driven framework is purpose. Hybrid is basically, it's a combination of them. So to answer your question, in a way they are a little bit of hand in hand when it comes to hybrid framework, but data driven and keyword are kind of individual. They are separate. So, and that we cannot just answer it in a few minutes or few hours. So you have to go through the entire videos to do it. Yeah, that starts where, what is a framework, how do we do everything, we will be discussing when we actually start with that particular topic. So let me complete this introduction part for today, and then I'll take up all your questions. Now when it comes to Selenium 1.0, so basically if you look at Selenium 1.0 suite, of course, as I told you, this is a kind of an outdated, but you don't need to really worry about 1.0 at this moment. So this had IDE. So if you're still not familiar, this is called integrated development environment. So that is what is called Selenium IDE. And then there was a component called Selenium RC. It stands for remote control. Remote control. The thing about this is, if you might have heard, especially when I talk about Selenium, a lot of people might have heard about Selenium RC. So this is kind of deprecated. So you don't need to really worry about this in the latest version. So 2.0, this is no more exist. At that time, that was the popular, but there are some problems with this, and that's why they have developed this 2.0. And one more component we had there was Selenium grid, and this grid is called grid 1.0. Okay, so these were the components in Selenium 1.0. Now if you see the latest version of Selenium, that is Selenium 2.0. Now what it has is, it has the Selenium WebDriver. It has Selenium WebDriver. It has Selenium Grid also, but that grid is actually called Grid 2.0. Selenium Grid 2.0. Of course, IDE also we still use it. So Selenium IDE is also there. Now these are the components in Selenium 2.0. What is the difference is this particular thing, remote control RC and 1.0, these two are combined into a powerful thing called Selenium WebDriver 2.0. So RC, the problems with that is you need to maintain a server there, and the execution happens used to happen via the server. So there were some performance problems as well as some of the issues with server maintenance and all that. So they kind of combined the remote control feature as well as the actual WebDriver 1.0 into something called Selenium WebDriver 2.0. So what are the three major components that we are going to look at in Selenium 2.0 is, we'll spend some time on IDE as I'm trying to draft it in this Excel. We'll spend about typically 3 sessions on IDE. People generally say IDE is not really useful and all that. Yes, in real time, you won't do real projects with IDE, just with the IDE. But the IDE will be used in certain situations where you want to identify a particular locator, or you wanted to see what are the properties that a locator has, and what is a mechanism that I can use it in my WebDriver to identify a particular control. So those kind of things we will be discussing on IDE. It's a simple recording and playback tool, like the way you might have worked with any other commercial tool where you have recording and playback feature. So the IDE is a simple recording and playback tool, and by default it generates it in a particular HTML kind of a language, and that script you can convert into Java, JUnit related one, C Sharp, Python, Ruby, etc. And that code as it is you can copy and put it into your WebDriver, and the WebDriver can execute for whatever the browser that you're actually pointing it. So we're going to spend exactly 3 sessions on that, not more than that, to understand few of the important things, like how do we actually create the test case and test suites. That is not much important, but unless we start with that, we cannot really create a test case. But what is most important is how the locators will get identified. Okay, tomorrow when we go to WebDriver and we start working with certain web controls, web locate, we call it as locators. How does the Selenium identify those web controls or locators? What is the identification mechanism that we can use? So we'll get our hands dirty on the IDE part of it for this, so that we'll become master when we go to WebDriver. We can actually use the similar concept how we identified in IDE. We'll try to do the same thing in WebDriver, and by the time you'll actually be master in what is by ID, name, class name, cascading style sheet, CSS, XPath, and all that stuff. Link text actually. So there are 8 mechanisms it will use to identify it. Link text, partial link text, etc. So that's the main purpose we're going to spend it on IDE. But otherwise also any point of the time in actually when you're working in real time also, if you feel there is some problem, you're not able to identify a locator, you can always come back to IDE. You can just do a quick recording and see how it is identifying, and then you can go back to WebDriver to do that. Okay, Sarala has a question. Are you going to discuss about fundamental Java before starting Selenium WebDriver, or do you actually take sessions as mentioned in the document? No, this I don't think that this is going to be a typical order actually. So Java language will have to do it parallelly. For example, as soon as we're done with IDE, when we go into WebDriver, initially we look at one Java program actually without any WebDriver into it. It's a plain Eclipse. We'll go to Eclipse tool and write a basic Java program, and then we will start adding WebDriver into it, and then we will, wherever it is required, we'll talk about Java concepts. But again, as part of existing videos, we have separate Java tutorials. We have framework separately so that you can actually parallelly go through also. But my explanation will be depending on the situation wherever it is needed. For example, I started using a static variable in Java, so then I'll talk about what actually variables and data types we have, where does the static comes into picture, whatever I introduce for the very first time. Suppose I'm writing a class for the first time, then I'll talk about what is actually a class and what is a class in Java. So those kind of things, I'm sure you will be comfortable with that. So Navdeep, when and from where we can have access to this video? You're talking about today's video or the videos that I'm actually seeing on the Java frameworks and everything? Today's video. So post the demo as soon as it's done, you all will receive an email with today's video. So it typically every day, as soon as we're done with the video, within 24 hours, the video will be uploaded into our ITLN website. uh, Free sessions, whatever we generally do the first one or two sessions, that you all will get it in email, but the remaining will be for the registered members. You have to log in into ITLN website and you have to go to the particular category, let's say Selenium videos, and then you'll find the latest course. Okay, so that is how we'll look at the IDE purpose of it. And then WebDriver, as I told you, the major automation in real time with respect to Selenium, whatever we are talking about, that major automation happens in the WebDriver. So that is WebDriver 2.0, so which they have combined RC and into grid. So people use it different tools for working with it, but primarily we are going to use Eclipse with Java for working with this WebDriver. But people can also, I would say 90% of the people work with Eclipse with Java. There could be some people who may work with C Sharp, then they will use Visual Studio as their primary development tool for that with C Sharp. But people who use Java mostly will be going for Eclipse with Java. Simple. First, my suggestion is until first 10 days of time, just go through the live sessions. I think JS has a question. There are many videos in the site, so which one to go through? Even though there are many videos, they have been very clearly categorized. For example, if you go to Selenium, a particular batch date and time will be there, particular batch date and year will be there. So according to the latest date, you have to pick it up, ideally speaking. But don't worry on this one. So until first 1 week, you just continue with the live training, whatever we are going to deal with, and then I'll tell you when is the right time to go through those videos. Yes, class is going to be every day, not just definitely not on weekends. It'll be Monday to Friday, similar time. For now, Suma, as I'm telling you, right now we don't need anything. I'll tell you the right time to go. If you have time, yes, you can go through Java videos, but I will be actually telling you when is the right time to go through also. Okay, so now this is a quick introduction about the tool. So any questions on the tool? But again, I'm telling you, it's not just about this. You can see the topics that I've written. Forget about this first column. What we're going to do is tomorrow we'll look at a little more detailed introduction to Selenium, and then we'll start working with IDE first with the project 1. So that will go for 3 sessions. And after that, whatever we have developed in IDE, we'll be porting that into WebDriver. So we'll spend around 10 days on the WebDriver. We'll work with basic concepts like how to identify different locators, how to work with controls like a text box, a button, a link, a web table or an HTML table or a frame. So we'll look at a calendar control. So there are different things that we deal with WebDriver, and each one we'll look at with an example, and that example will be available for you to practice in the Google Drive document. And then after that, you can try a different example with a similar thing. So we look at different browsers as we talked about it. We'll start with Firefox, which is a default. But again, we'll look at Google Chrome, we'll look at Internet Explorer. So we do browser compatibility testing with it. And probably one of the session will deal with in a Macintosh operating system also. So we look at operating system compatibility testing and everything. And as part of this WebDriver, again, we will be working with a JUnit framework, which is typically a unit testing framework. And then there is another important framework that people actually use it called TestNG framework, the next generation framework. And then we look at what is the difference between JUnit and TestNG, what are the different annotations that are available in JUnit, what annotations are available in TestNG, and almost TestNG will spend about 2 complete sessions on the TestNG framework. So, and JUnit will be around 2 sessions. Then we'll go for Selenium Grid. Selenium Grid, as I told you, I have written it here in both the places. In fact, in 1.0 and 2.0. But I told you 1.0, whatever was there, that they have upgraded it to 2.0. So what we have currently is Selenium Grid 2.0. What is the purpose of Selenium Grid is parallel execution. Sometimes we will have multiple test cases, and if you have to just run it them in sequentially, it takes a lot of time. For example, let's say you have 1,000 test cases to run it, and the entire time is going to be let's say about complete 10 hours of time it's going to execute. I'm just giving an example. And you have a requirement to run it them on different browsers, on different operating systems. So if you have to go sequentially, then how many combinations you have, that many into 10 hours, which is a very, very time consuming thing. So what grid enables us is, grid enables us to do a parallel execution. It's like a hub. So we set up a hub and we create different nodes with the different operating systems and browsers, and we run the execution parallelly. So when you're actually doing the parallel execution, obviously the time consuming will be less, but at the same time you are able to do it on different combinations of operating systems and browsers. So it's a very important component. We'll spend good amount of time on that to understand. Definitely we're going to look at database testing. So as we all know, when we're actually doing the functional testing, whatever you're going to test only from the front end is not sufficient. So you have to really go to the database to check whether the records are getting stored into the right tables or not. So the same thing, we'll see how we can use JDBC, how we can connect to a database like MySQL or SQL Server or any other database for that matter from Java, and then see what we can validate on that. The another very important and advanced concept that you will definitely get to hear in the interviews is the page object model or page factory. So this is a kind of a structure that people are trying to follow now. They create one class for each page. Suppose I have a home page, then I have a login page, then I have a some orders page, and then there is a customer page, etc. So you create one Java class for each of these pages, and all the locators in those pages you will define it in a particular class file. So that's the way, if there is any change happens in the future, let's say in the home page there is one new link being added or an existing link being modified, so you know which class file you have to go and modify it if you actually maintain it as a page object model or a page factory concept. Very advanced, very important, so we'll be discussing with examples on that. Then I told you it's not just about you automating it through a functional testing tool like a Selenium or anything, but in today's world, most of the organizations has a target to do a continuous integration and continuous deployment. If you have not heard, this is a very important target that companies are trying to achieve. It's in short form, you can call it as CI/CD, stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. So what happens on a daily basis, people will be actually submit. Nowadays it's all agile, we all know that. And there are some companies who are working on weekly sprints. Some companies who are actually working on a nightly build model. That means from morning to evening, developers will write the code and nightly automatically build will be triggered, and then testers have to do their automation automatically on the build, the latest build which got generated, and then send out the results whether the testing has been passed or failed, so that the customers can actually start using the build. Now that is a target that most of the companies are looking at it right now. Even I'm an architect in one of the top MNC multinational company, one of the 5 multinational companies that are top in the world. So I'm an architect. It's basically my current role is SDET architect, software development engineering test architect, where I deal with framework development, automation of it, and then also taking some of the initiatives that are combined with the development team and testing team. So this is one of the things that we try to achieve it in most of the projects that what we do. And if you have the tools like this, the build tool like Apache Maven and Jenkins, it is pretty much possible, and it can automatically send out the notifications as soon as you are actually running the software. It can send the notifications to the distribution list, whatever you give. So we are going to look at those, typically integrating with Apache Maven and integrating with Jenkins. I told you Java language is going to be throughout the course. Wherever it is required, I'll be discussing, but we have a separate videos done by Karthik exclusively on the Java language that also will be given to you as an access, and you can go through them whenever you get time, as soon as you're done with the registration process. Data driven framework, I will be also dealing it, and we also have recording sessions, so you will actually get to see from both the angles, from my side as well as from Karthik, how data driven framework is done. Keyword driven framework, will be giving you the videos of Karthik which has done it. It's on a typical project. He spent about 4 to 5 sessions exclusively on that. Same with hybrid framework. We'll be giving you videos of Karthik. Then I'll be taking up resume preparation and interview questions, etc. on the complete Selenium course. So this is what I wanted to cover it for the orientation session. So let me take up some of the questions that are there in the chart, and you can put any other questions that you have it right now, so that we can take them. As I told you, if you can make it related to technical questions, that will be much better. Anything related to registration, payments, process, please take it through the sales.elearn at sales.elearn or learn at itlearn.com. So as I told you, we are not going to cover mobile application testing with this. It's typically what we're going to spend it is on web application testing with Java. Specifically with, you need to understand those web application testing with Java. Because Selenium, there are few companies or very few people, like around 5% to 10% of people also use it with C#, but this course is targeted for Java. Okay, I'm going through the questions like I told you, somebody told the webinar is given only for 26 days, so we'll add it at the end. Typically, I'm targeting to complete within 30 sessions of it. To learn Selenium, do we have programming language? Yes. So in fact, not just Selenium, any automation tool that you're going to do, either UFT, Selenium or Visual Studio Test Suite. So you definitely need to be comfortable with programming. So here the programming language, as I told you, we're going to discuss is Java. Ashish has a question. Is there any device specification we need to have for Selenium project? Is there any device specification we need to have for Selenium project? You're talking about targeted device testing or in a tool as such. If you're talking about tool, yes, we are going to work with the different, as I told you, one is IDE for your integration development, Eclipse for WebDriver development, integrating with WebDriver. So we'll be working with Eclipse. We'll be working with uh, actually there will be a lot of JRU files we are going to use, Java runtime environment files for everything. So Selvin has a question: how many sessions you can attend before you join? Typically we do a demo plus one free session, that is tomorrow, and then post will be a paid sessions. Navdeep has a question: when and from where we can have access? Yeah, I think I've already answered. Videos will be given to you access as soon as you're done with the registration. It could be today, tomorrow, whenever you are actually done. Um, if you get time, so go through the latest batch that has done by Karthik, and if you can just start with the Java, that is also fine, or if you start with the Selenium, that is also fine. There are many. I think I already answered that question. So is this class is going to be every day? I told you it's going to be Monday to Friday, same time, no weekends. Do we need Windows or Mac devices for these sessions? No, if you have Windows, that is fine. If you have Mac, that is also fine. Whatever you have, on that only you are going to install the tool, and on that only you are going to practice it, because it works for both of them. Wouldn't it be easier to start with the framework first and then expand on identifying elements and such? That's exactly the two different flavors you're going to get, Rajesh. Karthik dealt it completely like that. Like, he spent only little bit introduction on the tool, and then he started with a project with a framework. So that set of videos, anyway, you're getting it. I'm trying it in the other way to see how it helps people. First, we'll have to understand the different locators and what is identification mechanism for that. And then after completing the basics, then I will be shifting to the framework. So you have two flavors of it and see which works for you. I don't have basic knowledge of any language you mentioned as HTML and Java. I'm from a non-IT background, so is it okay to take up this training? So for that matter, it is the same case with most of the people who are attending actually, Jane. The only thing I would request you is whatever the tool that you're starting up, spend some time, learn programming. That's the only way, because any automation tool you have to deal with it, you have to deal with some programming. But uh, it will not be. So when I say programming, you're not going to code it as if like a developer. But if somebody is coming from that background, and somebody already has like a programming knowledge, that's well and good. But you cannot be compared equally to a developer who actually writes a Java development programming language. But there are certain, you need to know fundamental Java at least. What is Java is used for, what is object-oriented programming, what is a class, what is an object, what is a method. Then some of the important things like how do you write a function, how do you pass parameters to a function, then so which are basically required for, and how do we do a comparisons, like how do we write an if statement, a conditional statement, and if I have multiple combinations to test, how do I write a select statement? So those kind of things. TestNG framework is newer and more advanced than JUnit. Is JUnit still common in industries? TestNG more. That's why I think I've put both of them. So we'll be discussing both of them, and you'll understand very clearly what are the different advantages in TestNG. And we are actually using TestNG in my real projects also. So you'll get to know. To learn Selenium, do we have programming language to learn? Yeah, I told you, Java. To use Selenium for regression, so all kinds of testing that you mentioned, like regression testing, retest, still application has to be web-based and not Windows. Yes. So the main, so that is one of the limitations. If you compare with its competitive tool like Qtp or UFT, that is primarily used for Windows applications as well as for web applications. It's for both. But it is again a commercial tool. You have to shell out some money for buying the license, and the language used is VB script or JavaScript. You can use it for that. And initially, you by default you will get Internet Explorer license, but as you can buy, you can use it for other browsers also. So that is on the UFT side. Now coming over here, entire tool is free, but the limitation is only web-based applications. But the trend, if you see, it's not just started now. I agree there are Windows applications, but if you see the trend, most of the applications that what we actually currently use is so web applications. So that's where people use it, Selenium. Okay, Mohammed has a question. What are the main differences between JUnit, TestNG, KDF, DDF, and hybrid framework? So that is something that we cannot definitely answer now, because each one, JUnit we're going to spend 2 sessions, TestNG we're going to spend 2 sessions, KDF Karthik has done at least I think 4 to 5 sessions. Data-driven framework will do it, so you will be able to differentiate once we understand it completely. Uh, so Anjali says, thank you, Shankar. I'm so excited to learn tons of topics from you. Please give us a challenging examples and when. Yeah, yeah. So all the examples that I discussed will be shared with you, and also I'll be giving you some kind of uh, homework. So if you take it up seriously, then you will be actually become master, no doubt about that. So if I'm not wrong, you won't show us how can we implement Selenium in mobile. Yeah, I clearly told my book we're not dealing with mobile application testing here. It's only on the web application testing. When we are asked to start with automation project, how do we start with it? Feasibility of UAT framework, etc. So that's where I think we can spend some time tomorrow initially on the introduction to automation. Definitely you have to do a feasibility study, like what technologies that your application is being developed and whether it is being supported by Selenium or not, and what are the different locators it has. But let me also tell you, no tool in the market supports 100% of automation testing for any of the project. The maximum target that we try to automate is about 60 to 70% of the cases. Achieving that itself is a great number, to be frank. The reasons could be, as we are talking about, the problems could be with the locators that we are using, third-party controls that we are using, the technology that we are using. So including all that together, even if you automate 60 to 70%, it's a great number. You have to do, especially the test lead has to do a proper feasibility study. If required, he has to do some proof of concept with that particular project, with that particular tool, before taking it forward for a bigger team. Because after spending some good amount of time with your automation testers and developed something, and then if you hit a roadblock, then it is a problem. I already okay. So pairs and all, please take it with the team. Does a day-by-day course is how we would work on a real project? Wouldn't we start with a framework when starting on any project? I think just I answered it. So uh, you are going to see the two flavors of it and just see what works for you. I don't have any experience with programming language, so would this session be helpful for a person like me? I think so. Anything that you start with automation, I already told you, programming you have to deal with it. So why don't you start with Selenium with Java? I have joined late because of some system issue. I'm a registered user. How can I get this session? So post this session, I told you, you all will receive an email with the video. Just go through it completely. So will you be joining us to the exact videos to watch that? Yeah, yeah, I'll be showing you exactly what to watch from the Karthik videos. How much depth knowledge of Java is required? I told you it's not like a developer where you need to know a lot of advanced concepts of Java, but you definitely need to know some of the programming fundamentals like conditional data types, variable types, constants, conditional and control statements. How do you write functions? How do you write classes in Java? How do you use the methods of one class into another class, typically what we call it as an inheritance. So some of these fundamentals you need to know. Can you please tell the videos? Yeah, I will be telling that. You had mentioned we would need to go through videos from Karthik to learn more in some areas. At what point we? So that's advanced frameworks like keyword-driven framework, hybrid framework. I will be telling you all guys when it comes to the right time. WebDriver and RC, will it be an end-to-end programming or you'll use IDE and change? No, no, no. IDE we are going to spend only in the first 3 sessions, and after that completely we are going to spend it on the driver only when you face some problem. Let's say we are trying to automate something and we have an issue with one of the locator not getting identified, then we'll just come back and see how IDE is actually treating that, and then we'll go back and write the same and see if we can work. So that's the only purpose, but no, it's completely on the Eclipse with WebDriver. Is it still JUnit widely used? It's a typical unit testing framework, so Java developers use it. Selenium supports Windows applications as well. No. Windows applications means desktop applications. If you're talking about, no. Windows operating system, yes. Isn't JUnit for unit testing? Yes, it is done for unit testing by the developers. I already answered. Wouldn't only TestNG framework be sufficient enough? So once you know JUnit, once we go to TestNG, you'll understand the difference. That's the only idea. Yes, how to install IDE, how to install WebDriver, how to install Grid, everything I'll be guiding you through step by step. Otherwise, you may not be able to. I mean, probably after I show it once, I'll send you the documents and then you can also do it on your own. But yes, is there any pre-recorded videos for Maven and Jenkins and POM-VF? No, unfortunately, Mohammed, I'm dealing it in this batch. I dealt it, basically on a lot of classroom trainings and online trainings, but not with the previous batch of IT learn here. Do we need to set the Selenium in our computer to practice from the site you stated? Yes, that is from where we try to get all the softwares, required softwares that we'll be installing. I told you, it's not a single suite like if you have worked with an HP UFT, all you have to do is just install the UFT tool and you're done. And later on you do only plugins. But this is a freeware. Different people have come together all over the world and spent some time and developed. So you have to stitch it together basically. All the Java runtime environments you have to configure it, then your tool becomes more and more powerful. So we'll deal with one at a time so that those features we can use it. Do you teach how to use Eclipse? That is what is our bread and butter. Everything we're going to do it in Eclipse. Will still Selenium WebDriver help in testing components work with? Yeah, yeah. So especially Ajax will be dealing with a separate session. So can you cover web service concept or testing? Uh, that is not something that we're going to do here. It is a UI testing. It's not a web service testing. So for that, we have different tools like SOAP toolkit and other stuff. So that is out of scope for us. Sujata has said, I'm new to automation. Which tool is best to learn as a first automation tool for me, QTP or Selenium? See, at this moment, if I ask you to do it, I would definitely ask you to go with Selenium. But people who have already done it QTP, that is also fine because the market is equally good or little bit better for Selenium because it's a freeware tool. So if you're looking for an immediate job after the course, my suggestion would be to go for Selenium. As a tester, does I have to work on TestNG? So I told you it's one of the framework. When you have multiple test cases to run it, you will have to run it with some kind of a framework. So TestNG is what people also use it. So hope I answered all the questions. So let me know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, we are good to go for pass this demo session today, and then we'll be starting with the actual sessions from tomorrow. As I told you, we'll be wrapping up all these topics with in detail examples and everything in 30 sessions from now. I told you it is live sessions which I'm going to deal will be around 30, plus you will have some of the videos done by Karthik. So put together you will get about 50-55 sessions course completely. Mahbub, I already answered the question. Yes, mobile testing is out of scope for us. We are not doing mobile testing here. If you know the Java live, so again, Amit has a question, can I use this for an Appium? Here I would be dealing with Selenium concepts and related to web application testing and Java. Some of them would be helpful, but not completely on your Appium tool. Okay, coming to live projects. Suma has a question on live project. So what we do at IT Learn is after the course gets completed, I told you IT Learn is also associated with many other business groups, and there are some live projects keep on going on, getting developed with related partners of IT Learn. So we also do a live project after the course of it, UFT, Selenium, or anything that we do. People who have learned it previously also they will come and do that particular project. But that's altogether a separate apart from this 30 sessions which I'm going to do. So if you're interested after the course and you wanted to really get into some project experience, that will be the example where you actually work with multiple team members across the different geographic locations, and they develop different frameworks like data-driven framework or keyword-driven framework or hybrid framework. But for that, minimum is that you have to complete our course basically. because if you have learned from somewhere else and if you directly wanted to do real project, you may not be in a position to complete that, because what we deal here and what we generally you might have learned we don't know outside. So that will be the situation. So the minimum requirement for that is you have to complete the Selenium course. Okay, job assistant placements and all, it is not something that we directly do with course itself, but we have a placement cell. We are also working on requirements for different companies. So we'll be giving you a mail ID post the course, in which you can drop your resume, and we have a placement cell. They will be contacting you if there are any requirements as come up. All right, so any other questions that we have? I think we are overshooting about 5 minutes. That's okay if you have some questions. Otherwise, I'm kind of winding up this demo session for today. See you tomorrow where we want to start with the session 1. Thank you all for attending. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you're from. See you tomorrow.